Imagine clocking out for the last time, walking to your car with that little box of desk supplies, and just feeling absolute financial freedom, only to realize, like 6 months later, that your entire plan was built on a complete mathematical illusion.
Oh, that is a terrifying spot to be in.
Right. You're suddenly trapped, and the steady paycheck is permanently gone. Welcome, everyone, to vpod.ai. I am your host, Mike.
And I am Susan. It's wonderful to be here with you all.
You can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit vpod.ai to get started today.
So today we are zeroing in on the year 2028. If you're planning to retire in roughly 2 years, well, this conversation is about what you need to be doing right at this exact moment.
Yeah, it's a very specific timeline, and I'd argue it's the most crucial one. Because when you're 2 years out, you're in this unique sweet spot.
Still got some leverage. Exactly. You still have the leverage and the time to make meaningful adjustments, but, that window is rapidly narrowing. Waiting until your final 3 months on the job to actually look under the hood of your finances, it just drastically shrinks your options to course correct.
So the mission today is to help you take this final 24-month countdown and completely transform it. We're moving away from just passively crossing days off a calendar in your cubicle.
Right, turning it into a highly strategic fine-tuning phase.
Exactly. We want to make sure you don't fall victim to totally avoidable financial or, honestly, emotional landmines when you finally leave the workforce.
And the absolute foundation of this phase, it starts with the budget. But, it's not the budget you have right now.
Okay, so a future budget.
Right. The first priority is taking a hard, realistic look at whether your accumulated savings will actually support your anticipated spending once you officially stop working.
I always think about this transition into retirement spending, kind of like shifting gears in a car. Because for decades, you've been on this predictable highway commute, right?
Yeah, steady speed, same route.
Same gas mileage day in and day out. Then you retire, and suddenly you're navigating these winding, unpredictable, scenic roads. Your spending habits change gears entirely. So why is it such a pervasive myth that overall expenses just magically plummet the day you stop working?
Well, because people focus almost entirely on the subtraction side of the ledger. They look at the dry cleaning bills, the expensive daily lunches downtown.
The commuting cost.
Exactly, the professional wardrobe. And they correctly assume all of that disappears. But they completely fail to calculate the addition side of the equation.
Ah, the scenic road expenses.
Yes, the scenic road. Because think about it, every single day essentially becomes a Saturday. When you're working 40 to 50 hours a week, you simply don't have the sheer volume of free time required to spend money at the rate you do on a weekend.
That makes total sense. You're stuck at a desk. You can't spend money even if you wanted to.
Right. But in retirement, you have a massive abundance of free time. You want to travel. You want to finally dive into those hobbies you put off. You want to go out to lunch with friends on a Tuesday.
And all of that requires funding.
It does. So taking your current budget and just subtracting gas money is a recipe for a massive shortfall.
Which means the baseline budget has to be updated. But, at this stage, 2 years out, just writing numbers on a spreadsheet feels a little, theoretical.
It is theoretical, which is why the strategy right now is to test drive that new budget. Don't just map it out on paper. Actually live strictly on your projected 2028 retirement income for the next 6 months while you're still working.
Wait, really? Oh, wow. So you artificially restrict your current cash flow to match what you'll have in 2 years.
Precisely. If your projected retirement income is less than your current salary, you reroute the surplus into an untouchable savings account.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah, if you find yourself constantly dipping into that separate account just to make ends meet over those 6 months, you have immediate, undeniable proof that your 2028 budget is a fantasy. It simply hasn't survived contact with reality.
And because you're still 2 years out, you actually have time to fix it before it's too late. That is incredibly practical. You basically find the holes in the boat while it's still parked in the driveway, not when you're out in the middle of the lake.
That's a great way to look at it.
Okay, so moving logically from what you'll spend to how you're going to pay for it, we need to evaluate the income streams, right? Employer-sponsored plans, pensions, personal savings, Social Security. But I'm going to push back here a little bit.
Go for it.
If I've spent 30 years saving all this money, isn't it just sitting there in a big pile for me to use? Why is the withdrawal strategy so complicated that it can actually break someone's long-term security?
Because, unfortunately, a dollar saved is not necessarily a full dollar in your pocket when you go to spend it. The mechanics of taxes can silently devour a massive portion of your wealth if you don't orchestrate your withdrawals correctly.
Ah, right. The IRS always gets theirs.
Always. You generally have three buckets of money. You have taxable accounts, like a regular brokerage account. You have tax-deferred accounts, like a traditional 401k where you haven't paid taxes yet. And you have tax-free accounts, like a Roth IRA.
And most people probably have the bulk of their wealth in that traditional 401k bucket, meaning the IRS is waiting for their cut.
Exactly. Every single dollar you pull out of a traditional 401k is taxed as ordinary income. So if you retire and decide, hey, I want to pull out a large lump sum to buy an RV or pay off my mortgage.
You just bumped your income way up.
You did. You could accidentally bump yourself into a massive tax bracket for that specific year. You might end up giving the government a third of that withdrawal just in taxes.
But it really is a puzzle of which bucket to pull from and when.
It is. And that 2-year runway is the perfect time to look at something like a Roth conversion ladder. While you're still working, you might intentionally move money from your tax-deferred 401k into a tax-free Roth account, paying the taxes now at your current known rate.
So you systematically fill up your current tax bracket.
Right, so you don't face a massive tax bomb later when required minimum distributions kick in.
That makes the timing absolutely crucial. And I imagine that same precision applies to Social Security.
Oh, absolutely. Social Security timing is a permanent, irrevocable mathematical decision. The age you choose to claim permanently dictates your monthly payout for the rest of your life.
So claiming early is a hit.
Claiming early at, say, 62 means a permanent reduction in your benefit. But if you wait until your full retirement age or delay it all the way to 70, the government guarantees an 8% increase in your benefit for every single year you delay.
An 8% guaranteed return in today's environment is huge. Unbelievable, really.
It's unmatched. But if you haven't planned your tax buckets correctly, like we just talked about, you might be forced to claim Social Security early just to cover basic living expenses.
And then you permanently lock in that lower rate.
Exactly. You're leaving a vast amount of money on the table over a 30-year retirement just because the pieces weren't coordinated.
Okay, so if pulling out too much money in 1 year triggers a tax bomb, what happens when an emergency forces you to do exactly that? Which brings us to, honestly, the most stressful part of this preparation stress testing for worst-case scenarios.
Yeah, this is where income strategy directly collides with risk management. You have to stress test your plan against specific external threats, particularly during the first few years of your retirement.
Right, because the early years are apparently the danger zone. I keep picturing this stress testing phase like running a fire drill while you still have access to the water hose being your current steady paycheck.
That's a perfect analogy.
We're talking about sudden medical emergencies or heavily sudden market downturns. What is the actual mechanism that makes a market crash in year 1 so much more devastating than a crash in, say, year 15?
It comes down to a mathematical concept called sequence of returns risk. See, when you are accumulating wealth and still working, a market crash is actually an opportunity.
Because stocks are on sale.
Exactly. You're buying stocks on sale with every new paycheck. But once you retire, the water hose is turned off. You no longer have new capital flowing in.
Right. You're officially pulling money out of the system.
So let's walk through the math on this. Imagine you have $1 million portfolio, and in your first year of retirement, the stock market drops 20%. Your portfolio is now worth $800,000.
Ouch.
But you still need to pay your property taxes and buy groceries, right? So you're forced to withdraw $50,000 to live on. Now your portfolio drops to $750,000.
You're selling shares at a massive discount just to keep the lights on.
Exactly. You are permanently cannibalizing the principal. Even if the market roars back the next year and goes up 20%, a 20% gain on $750,000 only brings you back to $900,000.
So you never get back to your original million.
Never. That money is permanently gone, and it can never compound for you again. That is sequence of returns risk. A bad sequence of market returns early in retirement can fatally wound a portfolio, even if the average returns over 30 years look totally fine on paper.
That is terrifying. But going back to the water hose analogy, if you run this stress test now, 2 years before you retire, you can actually build the defense mechanism.
Yes, because you have total flexibility right now. If your stress test shows that a year-one market crash would ruin your plan, you build what's called a cash tent.
A cash tent.
Yeah, you use these final 2 years of your salary to aggressively stockpile 1 to 2 years of living expenses in pure liquid cash or cash equivalents.
Okay, so if the market crashes the day after you retire, you just live off the cash tent?
Exactly. You don't sell a single stock while the market is bleeding. You give your investments time to recover. If you wait until you've already left the workforce to realize you need a cash buffer, your only options are drastically slashing your lifestyle or trying to find a job at an older age during a recession.
Okay, this brings up a massive question about the actual investments themselves. Doesn't this risk entirely negate the way we've been told to invest?
How do you mean?
Well, financial planners have always hammered home this conventional wisdom. As you approach retirement, you move everything into ultra-safe, conservative investments. You dump the stocks, you buy cash and stable bonds. Why is that suddenly considered dangerous advice for someone retiring in 2028?
Because that old rule of thumb was built for a completely different era, and it ignores the silent killer of wealth, which is inflation. It also ignores the reality of modern longevity.
Meaning we just live longer now.
Right. A retirement that begins in 2028 could easily stretch 25, 30, or even 35 years.
Yeah, if you retire at 60, you could easily be around at 95.
And if you move your entire portfolio into ultra-safe, fixed-income investments right before you retire, you are effectively eliminating your portfolio's ability to outpace inflation over those 3 decades. Let's say your safe bonds are yielding 3%, but inflation is running at 3%. Your real rate of return is 0.
You're just treading water.
You're actually sinking. Because healthcare costs, which make up a massive portion of retirement spending, historically rise much faster than standard inflation.
Oh, that's true.
If your money is just sitting entirely in safe assets, its purchasing power is slowly bleeding out year after year. You might proudly preserve your original $1 million, but what that $1 million can actually buy 20 years from now will be slashed in half. You run the very real risk of simply outliving your money.
So it's this incredibly delicate tightrope walk. You have to preserve enough assets in cash so a sudden market crash doesn't trigger that sequence of returns risk we just talked about. But
you have to keep the growth engine humming in the background.
Right, meaning stocks just to fight off inflation for 30 years.
Which requires serious emotional discipline. I mean, in these final 2 years, when the market gets volatile, the panic can be intense. The instinct is to pull everything out and hide it under the mattress to protect your impending retirement date.
Which is exactly the wrong move.
Exactly. Reacting emotionally to a temporary market dip can derail a strategy that needs to last for decades. The goal is a gradual shift to a more conservative posture without turning off the growth engine completely.
Okay, we have gone deep into the math here. We've mapped the budget test drive, the tax brackets, the sequence of returns risk, and the inflation tightrope. But there's a completely different factor to this 2028 timeline that really stands out, and it has nothing to do with numbers.
It's the lifestyle factor.
Yeah, the beyond finances factor.
Yeah.
Preparing for retirement isn't just about what you will spend, it's heavily about how you will spend your time. Honestly, focusing exclusively on the financial metrics feels exactly like planning a massive, wildly expensive wedding, but totally forgetting to plan the actual marriage.
Oh, I love that comparison. And the letdown can be profound. For decades, a career provides so much more than a paycheck. It provides a built-in, effortless social network. It dictates the structure of your day.
And goals, right, daily goals.
Yes, it gives you a clear set of daily goals and problems to solve. And for a huge portion of the population, it provides a very rigid sense of identity and purpose in the world.
You know exactly where you fit. You're the manager or the lead engineer, the senior teacher.
And when that stops abruptly, the psychological shock is severe. The data actually shows an alarming rate of depression, isolation, and even gray divorce in the first 2 years of retirement.
Gray divorce, wow.
Yeah, because pre-retirees pour 100% of their bandwidth into financial readiness. They cross the finish line, the math works perfectly, but they wake up on a Tuesday morning with absolutely zero on the calendar and no one to do it with.
Because everyone they know is still at the office.
Exactly. The forced socialization of the workplace vanishes overnight. That's why these final 2 years are critical for building out your emotional runway.
So you don't wait until you retire to figure out what you like doing.
No, you start intentionally cultivating friendships outside of your industry right now. You start experimenting with volunteer roles or consulting gigs that align with your values right now. You have to locate a new source of identity.
You need a reason to get out of bed that doesn't involve an alarm clock or an impending deadline. It's really about building a life you actively want to retire into, rather than just running as fast as you can away from a job you want to leave.
Beautifully said. The financial plan simply ensures you can afford to live. The lifestyle plan ensures you actually want to. If you haven't tested your hobbies or built a community before that last day of work, you are stepping into a massive void.
We have covered some serious ground today. If you are targeting a 2028 retirement, the message to take away is crystal clear. The next 24 months are not just a waiting room where you run up the clock.
Far from it.
This is an incredibly powerful, finite window of opportunity. This is your chance to test drive your budget in real time, to construct your tax strategy, to build that cash tent against market crashes, and to drastically reduce the potential for devastating surprises.
It requires a major cognitive shift. You're transitioning from the accumulation phase of your life, where the goal was just gathering as many resources as possible, into the distribution and optimization phase. Taking absolute control of these mechanics now is what gives you power over your own future.
And that is ultimately why this matters to you. Getting into the weeds of the math, the taxes, and the emotional preparation right now means you get to step into retirement with actual flexibility. You earn genuine peace of mind.
And the freedom to truly enjoy it.
Right. You get the freedom to truly enjoy the decades you have spent your entire life working toward.
There is a profound, tangible comfort in knowing you have stress-tested your life, both mathematically and psychologically, long before the safety net of the paycheck is removed.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you look toward that 2028 finish line. We spent a lot of time dissecting how to ensure your money won't run out. But what if the ultimate, most difficult challenge of your retirement isn't the math at all? What if the real test is how you will define your identity, your value, and your self-worth when you no longer have a job title attached to your name?